Okay, so we were talking about the exception. Okay, what is an exception? Okay, so exception is nothing but if it is breaking down your uh normal flow of the program, or in consider actually the example when we are driving. If you see if you see in a speed breaker in front of you, actually we apply brakes to slow down ourselves, right? The slowing down ourselves will be like stopping from our normal flow, and we are making ourselves ready for some bump, okay, to cross that speed breaker, right? So exception is also similar kind of thing, okay, in when it comes to the programming. Okay, so it is an event which disrupts the normal flow of a program. So to how to handle these things, actually, we have a couple of exception handling concepts which are available in Java, so which can help us, to continue the normal flow of a program. So exception handling enables us to handle runtime errors, and it maintains the normal flow of the program. So when we apply these uh, exception handling methods, okay, so what it does actually, it gives you an option, okay, whenever such kind of exceptions happens, how to execute your flow. So we can still proceed with the code execution. Sometimes actually it is kind of it executes uh, it executes the code which is not belongs to the normal flow, but it can execute the exception flow of the program. Okay, so exceptions can occur due to user's error or programmer's error, okay, or due to the failure of a physical devices or physical resource. Yeah, we're going to see those things. Okay, so what exactly an exception, right? So how many types of exceptions we have it, right? There are two. One is checked exception and the other one is unchecked exception. So when it comes to the checked exceptions, so a checked exception is an exception which occurs at compile time. These are all also known as a compile time exceptions. The programmer needs to handle these exceptions, and this is like more likely syntactical errors when we are writing a program. Okay, so nowadays actually we were using this IDEs. Okay, so IDEs are actually are helping us to compile them immediately, and you will be able to see those syntactical errors, okay, on the screen itself. Okay, so you can correct it. But earlier days, actually, whenever we write some program in the notepads or some editors, we have to wait until unless we execute the command of Java C, the compiler command, to compile your program, right? So yeah, so there actually we see all the exceptions, on the console, right? So, and one by one we used to fix it. But and now actually, we have plenty of IDs, and these IDs are helping us, to find out the exceptions, and these are compile time exceptions. Okay, so that. Hey, Samantha, are you able to hear me now? Yeah. So the programmer needs to handle these exceptions. An unchecked exception is an exception which occurs at the time of execution of the program. Okay, so these are also known as runtime exceptions. So what kind of exceptions that occurs at runtime, right? So if you see if you're writing some kind of program which consists a you know logical code, right? So if you if we have some kind of logical code, there may be, some possibility that, if we are missing some kind of logic over there, so which can cause a logical errors of the programming. Okay. And these logical errors, are coming under programming bugs, come under unchecked exceptions. And there are some errors actually. So errors are also not exceptions. Okay. So in programming, errors are something which is out of users control programmers. Okay. Controller of programmers and, control programmers control, and cannot be handled like exceptions. Okay. So errors are different. Okay. So we were talking about exceptions. Okay. So how to handle these exceptions, right? There's a concept called try, catch, and finally in Java. So what exactly these does, we'll see in detail in the class. Okay. Try, catch, and finally are used to handle exceptions in Java. Yeah, exceptions in Java. The try block is used to enclose the block of code which might throw an exception. Okay, the try block is always followed by a catch or final block. Okay, just a minute. Okay, so the catch block is used to handle the exception. It is always used after a try block. Okay, there can be multiple catch blocks followed by a try block. Okay, so if you're writing a program, okay, so why we are using try, catch, and finally, right? Let's check in the deeper. Okay, when you have a code that is going to cause, or if you are expecting there might be an issue that it could be happening. Okay, so that is called, that where the code, whatever that, which is going to cause an exception, you have to write that block into the try. Okay, so and where exactly that exception can be caught. Okay, so if you're writing some code, okay, which is causing kind of a, file not found exception. Okay, so this exception has to be caught. Okay, in the catch block. Okay, so the exception generation code will be going into try block, and exception catch code, will be going into the catch block. So whenever that kind of exception happens, catch block can, catch that exception, and it will have the instructions, in the program, how to execute the code, right? So if you're saying for a file not found exception, and then, you need some kind of print saying that, okay, there is that file that you are looking for is not available. So it is, you know yeah, so the file, whatever we are looking for, it is not available. And then, once it is available, okay, you can, like, you need some kind of statement that, whenever a file not found exception happens, so you can write those things into the catch block. Okay, so if you have any alternative file, if it is not available at one folder, if you wanted to check at the different folder, you can write the similar kind of logic again in the catch block. Okay, so there, that exactly the catch block is going to do. The catch block is used to handle the exception. It is always used after a try block, and there can be multiple catch blocks followed by a try block. Okay, so when we are saying why multiple catch blocks, in the after the try block, yes, there is one thing that we can do. Okay, so a code which we are trying to write can cause multiple exceptions, multiple runtime exceptions. not only the single one. Okay, so let's say, if you're writing a code which you're trying to retrieve a file, or trying to read a file data, from a path, correct? So that, from there, the first exception that you can see, where we don't see any file itself on the file itself in the screen, right? So sorry, at the location. Okay, so that may cause a file not found exception. And once you are reading it without checking anything, if you're trying to read, uh, you know you might be getting that null pointer exception. And uh, if you're trying to so if you're trying to read those files, okay, without a proper, if it doesn't have any lines exist, and you're not able to read it, so we might be causing, it might be causing a null pointer exception. Okay, so let's say you are expecting an integer over there at the first line itself, and if you're trying to convert, the null to an integer, okay, so again, you might be getting, some kind of parsing error, parsing exception as well, right? So all these things, can be handled. So all the exceptions will not occur at the same time. So it has its own scenarios, to occur, right? So what we are going to do, we are just going to perform those. We're going to we are going to see the logic and what kind of exceptions that it may cause in the program. So those things, we are going to write into a catch block. Okay, so one by one: file not found exception, null pointer exception, and some other exception if it is causing. We are going to write those exceptions into the in the catch block. Okay, so how the syntax looks for try and catch, right? The try and catch looks like something like this. Try, with the open flower braces and close flower braces, the exception generation code will be going under try. And the catch block looks something different, which is always having a parameter, exception, name, and the object of that exception. Okay, so, and when you say exception underscore name, so how do you know what kind of exception it can cause? Right? Java provided a lot of exception classes, okay? Exception classes which occurs whenever we are performing some kind of operations. Okay, whenever we are performing some kind of logic in our program. Okay, so Java already provided various exceptions, okay, exception classes, so that we can use them, whenever we are writing the program. And in case if you wanted to build your own exception, okay, so you can also create your user defined exception classes, okay, so which can handle your application exceptions, and will give you a proper information of those exceptions. Okay. Yeah. So in Java, finally block always follow. Okay. Follow a try or a catch block. Okay. So this is a block of code which is executed irrespective of whether the execution is handled or not. Okay. So when you say finally block, okay, so just remember that this is the last step of the program which is going to execute finally. Okay. So even though there is an exception, okay, even though there is no exception, okay, even though there is an exception in the class, or if it is, having a normal flow, then also, we don't have, this final block is going to execute. Okay. this finally block is going to execute the code. Okay, and just a minute. Yeah. So this final block is going to execute irrespective of the program execution. Okay. So whether it is an exception flow or whether it is a normal flow, there's a final block that it is going to execute at the end of the program. Okay. So if you wanted to close something, some important streams or sockets, whatever it, in the program. Okay. If you wanted to close them, you can use the finally block. Okay. To close it. Okay, so like let's say if you have opened a stream object, or you have opened a file connection. Okay, so if you wanted to close those things, okay, irrespective of the program execution, so you can just use the finally block saying that okay, this program has been stopped. You can print some kind of statements, or if you can print, or you can utilize to close those the socket connections or file connections or database connections, in the finally block. Okay, in plain Java program. Nowadays, actually, those kind of things, the file and related, if you are using some kind of Spring frameworks, okay, so it will be auto closed. You don't require to create any finally or try blocks. Okay. So how do you write, a try catch block, right? So let's say, I'm just taking an exception, divisible by 0. So this is called, it is going to give you an infinity value. But so in Java, actually, this is called as arithmetic exception, okay, divisible by 0. So divisible by 0 is not allowed in the programming. Actually, it will cause an exception. So that is, we are going to catch that. What kind of exception it is going to cause? You're not aware what exactly the exception it is going to print, right? So what we need to do exactly, if you're not aware of that exception, so you can still use the parent class of all exceptions, that is exception class. Okay, so in this class, actually what I'm trying to do, I'm just creating a main method, and under that I'm just trying to write something, try int a equals to 10 by 0. Okay, and I'm just catching that exception, and I'm just printing the exception object, what exactly it says. The program code, right, it is going to give you an output saying that java.lang.arithmetic exception divisible by 0, right? So when it comes to the exception, right, divisible by 0. Okay, so one second. Okay. Yeah, so I have a program, okay, which explains all these test exceptions. Okay, so hope you guys are able to see it, right? So, and yeah, let me go back to that triplet. Okay, so I'm just executing this Java test exception. Okay, so if you see here, there are two logics in this program. Okay, so first one is I'm just taking it int b is equals to 10 and int c is equals to 0. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, okay, so if it is c is equals to 0, there is something that I'm doing it throw exception, okay, or if it is yeah, okay. Okay, so let me tell you something. Okay, so what exactly I'm just doing from this main method, I'm just calling the division method, okay, with the value of 0, right? So let me do something, one second. Just a minute, I'll just change it to the scanner class. Mm, one second. Yeah, just a minute, okay. Mm, mm, okay, so I'm just doing, to make it possible, to multiple to find out the exception. Okay, so C command to be okay. So okay, let me do one more just small change to pass the two variables from here. Okay, so enter a number and first number for exception demo. Okay, yeah. So what I'm just doing, actually, I'm just trying to read those numbers directly from the yeah, sorry. So directly from the command prompt, okay, so that I can just change myself, not running multiple times the program, and I can just show you how it behaves, with a different type of inputs, right? So let me run it. Okay, okay, sorry. So Java test example, yeah, oh sorry, test exception, right? Exe equity. Okay, so it is asking me for the first number, right? So what is the first number that we are going to do it, right? First number is C. So I'm just giving 0 for the first number, and it is asking for the B. Okay, so I'm just giving 4. Okay, so that means, the logic, whatever it is going to be here, it is going to be, int A is equals to B by C, right? So it definitely going to, fail, right? So the program will be failed with the error. What exactly? Why? Because if C is equals to 0, I'm just throwing a new arithmetic exception. So the throw is the keyword. Okay, so let me just disable this. Okay, so to avoid the confusion, just a minute. Okay, yeah, so what I'm gonna do, actually we did not discuss about throw, so I'm just commenting it. Code actions. But where is that? Okay, that's fine. Okay, I'm gonna just comment that. Okay, so what we are expecting, right? If you are trying to do um and if you are trying to create an arithmetic exception, so we were just trying to add it over here. Okay, so yeah, so this is the code which is going to generate an arithmetic exception divisible by 0, and I'm just trying to change these things. Okay, so it would be easy for me to write them. Okay, so yeah, so now what it is going to happen, actually now I'm going to run the program again, and we'll see what exactly it is going to happen. So I'm not throwing any exception. Okay, so it should catch the exception accordingly to this the catch block, right? So what I'm gonna do, I'm just passing Java test exception. Okay, it is asking me for the first number. I'm just giving 4, and I'm just giving the second number as 0. So that means 4 divided by 0, right? So yeah, so what it is saying, it is still throwing that java.lang.exception divisible by 0. And in the exception, actually, so what we are trying to do, we are printing, in the catch block, we are printing the exception, and we were checking whether b is equals to 0. No, right? So this condition will not be executed because b is equals to 4. And we're checking if c is equal 0. We were asking the code to just assign a value for c is equals to 2. And then we are again performing the arithmetic operation, and we're just printing the value of that outcome, right? So that means 4 divisible by 2. So the answer is 2 that we are getting into the A, and we're just printing the same thing, on the screen, right? So finally, whatever we are printing, finally, irrespective of the proper flow or an exception flow, we were just executing everything, okay, in the code, and also the finally block is going to be executed. Even though we have an exception in the normal flow, the catch block has been executed, and we are executing the finally block as well, when in any of the cases. Okay, so now I'll show you the normal case. For that time also the finally block will be executed. Okay, so what do we need to do for the normal flow? We just need to pass a proper number for B, and we just need to pass a proper number for 2, like the C. So that means, so if you see here, there is no arithmetic exception. So that means our exception logic is not executed because of, there is no exception cost. And again, the finally block also executed without, like, it doesn't have any execution limits, right? Even though it is error, or even though it is a success flow, it is going to execute it. Okay, so this is how it works. Okay, so whenever you're having some exception. Okay, so I'm going to show you something else as well. Okay, so let me just copy paste this one. Okay, so you are not aware of exception, what exactly it is going to throw, right? So you can still use a catch block. Okay, and which can handle those exceptions, without any issue, right? So I'm just going to remove arithmetic, and exception is the main class for all the exceptions. I'm just going to run the same thing. Okay, so test exception and the first number 10, and I'm going to cause that exception now. So let's see. So if you see here, it still throws the same error even though if you are using an exception class, okay, not the specific exception, right? So that means, whenever you are trying to perform something and you're not aware what exactly it is going to throw an error, right? So that time you can still use the main exception class, the parent of all the exceptions, okay, and which can be, which can, help you to understand what exactly it is going to cause an error, right? So the same way, yeah, the same way, like, you can either use the exception or a specific exception class name, okay, to catch those things. Okay, so even though it works, seamlessly with any of the approach, but yeah, the actually the programmer should know what kind of exceptions that it is going to create, because we have to understand the logic, and we have to be we are able to like find out what kind of errors it is going to occur or exceptions it is going to create, right? So for those things, actually we generally follow the approach of creating specific exception catch blocks instead of a one global exception catch block, right? So like if you're writing something, as we discussed, right, if you're writing some kind of calling a web service, okay, so we might have some connection errors, we might have some specific application rest call error, or those things, right? It all these things, we have to be considered, and we need to write different catch blocks for all those things, okay? Or if you're having any user defined exceptions which can handle, you can still use those user defined exception class, okay? So how to use them? Okay, we are going to check it on using a keyword. Okay, so let's go back to the PPT. Yeah, so this is what we just discussed it actually, right? So whenever you have something, some exception logic in your program, if you wanted to throw an error, okay, so that the caller class, or anybody can know that, okay, so there is an exception occurred, okay. So the throw keyword is used explicitly to throw an exception, right? So what was the syntax for it? It's just very simple: throw new exception. Okay, so here we are trying to do something. Okay, if number is equals to 0, and we were just trying to throw an arithmetic exception divisible by 0, else we were just doing the operation, right? So the same way, what we are going to do it over here, actually, we were just trying to throw a custom exception which says division by 0, right? So generally, if you see back, if you look back, actually, we were just giving that divided by 0, right? We're just giving the symbol. Okay, uh, if you wanted to very specific with the error, you can still pass the user defined. Okay, you know one second, I'll show you. Cannot perform 0 for division, something like this. Okay, if you wanted to give some more detail on your exception, you can just throw that exception message, okay, to a catch block. Okay, so okay, so let me go back and just enable this code, okay, and see what exactly it is going to help us, right? So if c is equals to 0, and I'm just giving that, just throw an error, okay, don't go with that, okay. So 1 second, else, just moving it to an else block so that, it would be easy, to, okay, now it's fine. And yeah, okay, so let me run this program again, okay, with a throw block, right? 1 second. Okay, and okay, let's see now. Okay, so if you are throwing an arithmetic exception, and I'm not changing this logic, to it is still catching the exception. So whether it is able to catch that, right? So okay, so let's see. And Java test exception. Okay, enter the first number. So I'm just entering 6 and 0. So we wanted to uh, see that arithmetic exception, right? So yeah, so if you see here, so we were passing c is equals to 0, and then because of that we are just throwing an arithmetic exception, cannot use 0 for division, right? So that exception, we were not very specific actually, we're just throwing an arithmetic exception, but we are catching the exception only, right? So, and we were able to print it properly, okay, whenever we have this e, right, exception. So it still shows that it is an arithmetic exception. And why? Because we are just throwing it as arithmetic exception, right? So, and it is saying the user defined messages whatever we are passing it, correct? So cannot use 0 for division, right? So, and whenever we throw that, actually this catch block is capable enough to catch it, and then it is performing the exception flow of the logic, and it is just executing the program with the default value of 2, right? Okay, so we are getting an output is equals to 3. Okay, so that's all, like this is how we can handle those exceptions. Okay, and I'm just going to just change it back to the arithmetic exception, okay, so that it can work properly and looks good, okay, for the program, if you are using very specific exceptions. And you don't require to import any of these exceptions, because all these exceptions are part of java.lang package. Okay, so one second. Yeah, all these part of our lang package, okay, java.lang.arithmetic exception. So that means you don't require to import any of the packages, any of the classes which are under java.lang, because Java itself is going to push all those lang related classes, lang package related classes into your program without any import statement. Okay, that's why I never imported anything for the exceptions. Hope you guys understood about that, right? So yeah, I'm just trying to run this one because I just changed something. Okay, so Java test exception 10. 2, yeah. Okay, I'm just going to use the same thing, 4, 0, yeah, that's it. Okay, in both cases it is working fine. So let us go to the summarize, what exactly exception. We have just learned those things, and it is going to stop the normal flow of the program. And exception handling maintains the normal flow of the program. So if you are having some exceptions in the code, so you can write how to deal with that exception, and you can write exception flow of that program. Okay, and the try block is used to enclose, okay, a block of code which might throw an exception. So those kind of code will go under try, and where exactly you can catch those exceptions, whatever it is caused in try, it goes under catch block. And in the finally block, actually irrespective of the execution, if you want to write some code, okay, that will be, executed under the catch block, right? Sorry, finally block. Okay, so finally block is always executed irrespective of whether an exception occurred or thrown or not. Okay, so the throw keyword is used to explicitly throw an exception. Okay, so all these things actually can throw an exception. Okay, using keyword called throw. Okay, so that's what we learn. And we just saw a demo of all these things in the Replit. Okay, so this is a program, okay, which is going to explain all those topics. Okay, yeah, that's all for today. So I'll continue the next topic tomorrow. Okay, and on these Java basic things. And yeah, we can connect back tomorrow. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'm going to stop here.
Thank you, Harish.
Yeah,
I
are
could
you able to hear me?
back. Yeah, at last I could connect.
Okay, I'm not sure like what was the issue, but yeah, I was able
Yeah,
to.
I just turned off my laptop and I restarted again. Maybe that could be the reason it's working right now.
Okay, yeah, so I just recorded that session. Okay, so if you wanted to listen the same thing, okay, you can just go back and check in the YouTube channel. I think it will be uploaded in the evening or in the
Yeah,
morning or
yeah, I'm
something.
aware
Yeah,
of
you
it.
can
Yeah,
just you
yeah,
can just listen there.
yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you, Harish.
yeah, sure, Samta. Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye.
bye. Have a good day.
Bye. Yeah, thank you. Good night. Yeah.